jaguars, as British people like to call them, are, pound for pound, the big cats with the biggest bite, the most force. They have more bite force behind their cute little face floofs than tigers, than lions, than a big cat that rhymes with bears, oh my. And with that bite force, they use it to feed on the caiman alligator. How could a big cat bite into an alligator? Well, the jaguars, they bite right behind the eyes of the caiman so hard that it goes through their skull and into their brain. Jaguars bite so hard they bite brains, and it paralyzes the caiman, and then they drag it out of the river and they feed on it. How metal is that? And jaguars, among other large cats, have really big toe beans, and I want to touch them, touch their pads, but they won't let me because I'd die. Hello and welcome to another edition of Because Science Footnotes, the show where I take your comments, questions, and corrections from the previous week's nerdery on this channel and address them, and hopefully bring our ship of the imagination to some other interesting place, just like in Cosmos. Every week, I take corrections and questions about the cosmos and about humans, and I translate them for being like a cool, chill bro. That's woke Carl Sagan. Pretty woke dude anyway. But because of San Diego Comic-Con, which I am at all week, I have to film this episode before the next episode of Because Science comes out or came out, so I'm not gonna take any comments or questions or corrections on the You Do Not Want Invisibility episode. I am sorry, I will still read them though. Instead, for this edition of Footnotes, I'm gonna look at all the comments and questions that I haven't been able to get to that are kind of miscellaneous and don't relate to any specific episode, so that you are still heard by me or read. And besides, I'm sure that there were no real corrections on the invisibility episode. I'm sure I nailed it. So, what did you have to say across a non-specific time period? Our first comment comes from Cassiani Austin, who says, I have a question that's been on my mind. What would happen to the body if it was really in a void? What would you die of first? Would you even die? Love the show and hope that you continue doing this. Thanks. I contractually have to. Also, if you were in a void, you would die. And our closest analog to a void, if you can't find mine, which no one seems to be able to, then the closest analog is space. And in space, there's almost nothing. No air, no gravity. If you're not near something, there's always gravity. But what you would die of first is oxygen deprivation. You would pass out in about 15 seconds, and then you would slowly suffocate in your unconsciousness and drift off into the hands of Morpheus. Not the Matrix character, the smarter one. And so you would die basically by suffocating while unconscious in space, and then you would slowly freeze. And act really slowly. It's hard for things in space to lose heat effectively because it is just radiating out from the body. It is not being conducted or convected away by air like it is on Earth. So your body might not freeze its skin for 24 hours, even if you were out in space, but it wouldn't matter to you because you'd be Oh, also, do you recommend being a science communicator? It's hard. It's a very niche job. I'm very lucky that I get to do it. Not many people with this passion get to do it like I do it, so I feel very fortunate. So what I would say to you is that if you are really, really passionate about it and you love communicating things to people, and the universe is just so interesting to you that you have to let the rest of the world know how cool it is, go for it. Try writing your own blog that's free and sharing it with your friends for a little while. Start pitching articles to places. Try just recording videos on your phone and sending them to your friends, asking them if they are any good, and go from there. Maybe you'll get lucky. Luck is a lot of it. I got very lucky. If you're passionate, go for it. But if you're not feeling it, it's kind of a grind sometimes, so. Oh no! Our next comment comes from Dinis Santiago, who says, how can you write on the air in your void? A lot of void questions. Well, it's hard to say. It doesn't seem like an infinite void in all directions. Seems like there might be some kind of edge to it, like the guy from YouTube. Imagine that, walking into a group of your friends being like, no, I'm not Chris anymore. I'm the Edge. Who do you think you are? Someone incredibly talented and successful? Pfft. Our next comment comes from Astoldoth, who says, on your Kamehameha explanation, we do actually have a life force. If we didn't, we would die. No person without the help of a demon is able to light fire with their spirit. So now mutations in genes could occur for someone to have a weird ability to harvest their life force more easily than others. They might be able to do small things. Demons are involved in a lot of magic tricks, and monks lighting paper with their hands. Okay, so things like life force and demons could exist, or maybe those monks just had this flash paper that you can get for $5. I usually go with the simpler explanation, which is magic trick, not fire demons. And if that's what you believe, that's fine. Just consider what is more likely. I think it's having access to flash paper or a good editor like this. See? No demon, as far as I know. Like Burt Wonderstone. Is this your card? Not even a card, was it? No, flame! Our next comment comes from Dr. Cthulhu, praise be his name, who says, hi Kyle, simple request, can you please say hi monkey bones or something along the lines in the next episode? It's my niece's nickname and she would love the shout out from you. She really liked you on the Search for the New Mythbusters show. Look, Doctor, where'd you get your degree? Anyway, I would love to fulfill all these requests, but I just don't have the time to do every say, hi monkey bones! What up, girl? Bait? Sweet shoe! Oh, just for that, I would love if every time I did this, you get breakfast in the morning, you're like, all right, where's the dang forks? Ah! But if you could control that at will with the help of a demon, it would be pretty cool. I can't get a demon because I sold my soul for this. Our next comment comes from Facebook, and they say, could a boxer beat a zombie? I'm an amateur and weigh 75 kg, so I doubt I punch very hard, but what about Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson? Could they punch a zombie to death? Anyway, love from Australia, mate. They didn't say that, but I did. How was it? Indistinguishable? I know. Could you beat a zombie more easily if you were a boxer? Well, maybe if they're slow zombies. Fast zombies, everyone's done for, I think. But slow zombies, which already have, in my estimation, my theory, there's an episode that I did on it, they have more neurological damage already than a boxer might be able to put them down for the count, so to speak, pretty easily, especially if you had your boxer's gloves on. I think we have this common conception in our head that if you just punch with a bare fist, it's going to do more damage, but there is some research to say that boxing with gloves is more dangerous for boxers because you're punching harder without fearing damaging your hand, so you're landing more blows in less time with more force. So a boxer coming out of their house, time to get these zombies, with their boxing gloves on, might do a decent job if you go for the head or the body shot, but they don't need their kidneys. So if a zombie is still neurologically functioning somewhat, it's moving its body, then if you deliver a knockout punch, yeah, I could see it working. So strap up your gloves, is that what they say? And beat them zombies. Our next comment comes from David Britt, who says, if Ant-Man can control ants, can't Wasp control wasps? And wouldn't that make her even better than Ant-Man because she can control some of the most aggressive insects? Well, as Timothy Ross adds to this comment, he says, per the comics, she cannot control wasps. Apparently Hank Pym could not figure out wasp language, but let's say that she could. Then yes, controlling wasps, I think, would be far more, yeah. If you could control wasps, I would be very, very afraid of you. Much more so than if you could control ants. Ants have to, first of all, can only operate on 2 dimensions. They have to walk everywhere. Wasps can fly, and out of the 3 insects at the top of the sting pain index scale, 2 of them are wasps. One of them is like this big across, and when it stings you, the person who made this scale says, you should just lay on the ground and start screaming. That's how bad it is. And if you summoned a horde of those at me, and they can fly many miles per hour that I cannot run. I'd be terrified of you. Some ants can fly, but the ones that do don't have the same stinging capabilities as the ones highest up on the scale. The wasp can control giant Asian hornets, and they're the size of hummingbirds, and all they do is go around decapitating entire colonies of bees. It'd be terrifying. Sometimes they're called Japan's deadliest animal, not the ant. Fire ants are actually pretty low on the scale. Our next comment comes from Aussie Viking 2, who says, stayed up late after getting off work at 11, even though I have an appointment tomorrow at 9 to catch an upload early, and now I have no idea what to say. Hi, I guess. I mean, how's it going? How's living with an existential crisis? Or living inside an existential crisis, rather. Well, it's, Our next comment comes from Super Nerd, the Atheist Paladin, who says, referring back to my Ant-Man episode, that Jaint-Man would be slow. Literally, it wouldn't be an illusion like I said it would be, because nerve signals travel at 390 feet per second, and pain signals travel at 2 feet per second. So if you have a 50-foot Ant-Man, then pain signals, if he stubbed his toe, for example, would take upwards of 25 seconds to get to him. Now, this is assuming that Ant-Man's biology, when he scales up, doesn't change, which I think is a decent assumption, but not all signals travel as slowly as some pain signals at 2 feet per second. So I think his reaction time would be a little bit faster than what you mentioned, Paladin, but it still would be, yes, slow at the extremities of his body. It would kind of be like this. Hey! Which obviously is ridiculous. That was a good comment, but the best, nerdiest comment that I got while sifting through all of my notifications this week for this filming, I gotta get to Crackers on Ice, who says, in Dragon Ball Z, when Vegeta is training at 400 Earth gravity, wouldn't the air also be pulled down and condensed into liquid? What I really like about this comment is it led me down a rabbit hole of scientific curiosity. Now, you might think that if you just compress a gas, the molecules or the atoms will get close enough together that they will change phase and go from a gaseous state to a liquid state to a solid state. But that's not always the case. In fact, when you have to liquefy most gases, you also have to change the temperature. And if you think about that, it makes sense. If you have molecules inside of some volume, as you compress them, they're gonna be bouncing more and more against the walls of that chamber, which increases the temperature. So they're gonna resist changing into that different phase. So what you have to do, if you want to liquefy air, for example, which we can do, is first cool it way down, like negative 200 degrees Celsius, and then compress it with enormous compression. And then air itself can liquefy. So Vegeta, inside his gravity chamber, even at 400 G, even if that was providing enough weight to the air that it would compress itself and it would have a lot of pressure at the bottom of it, like in our atmosphere, for example, it still wouldn't liquefy because it would have to be so cold that Vegeta would be frozen. It would be like being in space, and we all know that only Frieza can survive in space, and his dad, King Cooler. Come on. Kakarot! Range. So congratulations, Crackers on Ice, you are indeed a super nerd. Ginyu Force. Now, if you are already subscribed to Alpha at projectalpha.com, you already know what the next episode of Because Science is going to be because you have already seen it. You got it 2 days earlier than anyone else, and you got to see other premium content that's on Alpha, like Natural Selection, which is a fun debate show that I'm doing now. It's sometimes streamed to this channel, but you can watch it all on Alpha. That's me and my friend Dan Casey. We argue science versus fiction. It's a lot of fun. You should check it out. But if you have not subscribed to Alpha just yet, the next episode of Because Science is going to be, how far can Sauron see? Ooh. That's right. In this week's episode of Because Science, I'm answering a very silly question that no one asked but myself, which is, if Sauron's giant all-seeing eye, as you see it at the top of Barad-dûr in the Lord of the Rings film franchise, if that eye was an actual giant eye and saw like our eyes see, just how good would that vision be? Hint, it's better than elf eyes, literally. It is an incredible sight that if you had it, you would keep it so close to you, it would be so precious. If you Gollum, then you want to put a ring on it.
So go watch the latest episode of Because Science
if you haven't yet, and leave me all of your comments, corrections, and questions, and maybe do a weird voice or two over at youtube.com/becausescience, facebook.com/becausescience, and @becausescience on Instagram and Twitter.
Yep. You can do it. Get those comments nerdy. Make those comments nerdy. Make them fresh and wriggling.
Range. Hey, and don't forget, there's about 3 pounds of bacteria inside of you. Bye.